Hey coders, this is database part two. So if you didn't name your project before, it should have been 5/7/2020 database part one. We're gonna go ahead and make part two, which is today. So what we were last talking about is how to create a record, and then how to, like we did here, create a record, and then how do we read a record. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to change a record. Okay, so let's go ahead and change our design a little bit, add a little bit more features. So let's go ahead and hit run real quickly and hit display table. So when we last left off, we were able to create a table, and a table has, these properties, in this case, name, and has an ID number. So we are going to change anything. If you go into data and you look at the update record, it needs a table, which we have, a record, which is what we're going to change, and the callback function. Okay, so we're going to need to know what ID we want to replace. Okay, so in case we, for example, misspelled something and we want to change it, we need to know what name we want to change it to and what number we want to change. So let's go ahead and go to our design real quick and go ahead and change that. So I'm going to drag this play table down. I'm going to add a new text input here. And let's go ahead and change it to number input because it's going to be index. Okay. So we're going to call it number input. And the placeholder, enter the index to change, something like that. And we're going to add a button here. Let's make it a little bit more spaced out. Okay. And we're going to call this the change button. Okay. And we're going to change the text on the button to change. Okay. Pretty simple design change here. So we just added a new text input box called number input, and we add a new button called change button. Let's go to our code. Okay. So just like the other two buttons, we want something to happen when the button is changed. So this is what we expect to happen. So let's go and do a kind of a dry run and see what this is supposed to do. So if I hit display table, right? Let's say I add in August, but I misspelled August, something like that, right? So I click on add. It's going to say August was successfully added. If I hit display table, it's going to show August misspelled on ID number 18. So what I want is that if I make a mistake, I can correct the mistake and enter in the ID number, which in this case is 18. If I click change, it's supposed to change it, right? So that's kind of what the idea is, what we want to happen. So let's go ahead and hit reset, and let's go ahead and add code to make this happen. So we're going to do an on event command, just like the other commands. So we're going to, actually the code's gonna look a lot like this. So let's just copy this entire thing. Okay. So I'm gonna copy all this on event add button, but change it to change button. Okay. So instead of add button, we're gonna change it to change. And when the person clicks the change button, we're going to take the text from the text input, which we still need, but we're going to add in another variable, a temp variable. We'll say temp index. And we're going to get the number. So get number from not text input, but I think I called it index input, number input. Okay. So we get the two values that the user put in. And in the add button, we checked if the name is empty, which I think we still need to do, right? But we're not going to create a record. But let's go ahead and just test if this works. Okay. Um, let's go ahead and just leave that create record here for now. Okay. So if I hit run and I click the change button, it should still say no name inputted, right? You can't change if you don't have something here. Okay. So that's our first case. So our first case works. Our first error case works. Okay, but we're not going to create a record. Let's go ahead and delete that. But once we have checked that there is no name inputted, well, what else do we need to check? Well, we also need to check that the index is not blank. So we're going to have to go into a couple if statements here. So let's go ahead and put two curly braces. We had to do another if statement. If the temp index, parentheses, is blank, we should go ahead and spit out an error. So let's go ahead and do a console log error, no index inputted for change, something like that. Okay. Else, that means now we got past that. What else do we got to do after we have checked that the temp index is not empty? We'll go ahead and test this real quick before we actually write more code. So say that I do want to change, if I hit the display table, I do want to change August, right? So I'm going to type in August, but I don't put in any index, and I click the change button. It should say no index. If temp index get number input console log, this error code doesn't work. No index inputted for change. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and print out what the console log value of temp index. So let's go ahead and debug our code, figure out why our error code isn't working. And let's go ahead and put a plus sign here, and we're going to put temp index and see what's inside this thing. Okay. So we're going to hit run. I'm going to put in August, and I'm not going to put in the index to change. And oh, it's nan. So it's going to say that this value is not a number. So we don't even need to do temp index. So let's just not worry about the text index being blank. Apparently, if it's blank, it's considered nan. So we can just go ahead and skip this test and just say is nan. And we're going to put in temp index. And we're going to go error index is not a number. Okay, so we'll do that error code instead, because basically if it's blank, it's going to basically become not a number, and then we're going to do nothing, right? Because in order to change, we need to have a number. Okay, so otherwise, let's go ahead and run our program and see if this works. Our error code works, so we click on August and we click change. It says, error index is not a number. Okay, so we can get rid of this console log now. So the only thing we need to add now is what happens if, all the checks have worked out. They put in a name, they put in a number. Let's go ahead and see how this update record thing works. Let's go ahead and drag and drop it. Okay. So update record requires a table, which we have, right? We called it the months table. Okay. It needs an ID number, which the default is number 1. We don't use 1. We're going to use the temp index, right? The number that the user put in. And we're not going to use name, right? Because name is the default one. We use a capital N. So we're going to change this to a capital N, right? Because you remember our table uses, inside the table, it uses capital N. So over here, we got to use a capital N, okay? And instead of Bob, we're going to use whatever the user put in the text input, so which is temp name. Okay, so the callback function has an extra argument, if you noticed. So in our previous callback, we have a record that was added, right? And over here, we have a records that was being read. But here we have something called success. So success is a Boolean value. It's either true or false. So this is what could happen. Suppose that some person put in a number in here that was not a number that existed on the table. Well, would the update record actually update that record? And the answer is no. So basically, whatever the user put in here, it has to match an ID here. If it doesn't, this will fail. So we're gonna use this Boolean value inside our callback so that we can show the user if it was successfully added or not successfully added. Okay, so this will update it if the number matches a number here. Okay, if it doesn't, it's gonna say false here. Okay, so this is the code that I want you guys to write. So if it was successful, and again, success being true or false, but if this is true, if success is equal to true, right, we're going to do a console log and say something like record dot name, okay, do a little plus sign, was successfully added or changed, sorry, successfully changed. Otherwise, meaning that success was equal to false, we're going to do console log um, record name plus failed to be changed because of index, and we're just going to do the index number, temp index. And we'll do something like this, put a little semicolon here. So this will basically give us a nice clean error message that if it was successfully changed or failed to be changed because of the index number not matching. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and run our program and see if it works. So let's go ahead and hit our table again. Again, I had this August that was correctly, inaccurately added, right? I misspelled it. So let's say I'm able to change it. And if I type in the number correctly, which is index 18, and click change, it's going to say August was successfully changed. And now if I hit display table, August is now correctly added. Now, don't worry about the fact that August and ID are in different positions. It's just the way that tables are read. If you look at our data right here, August is being added correctly into our table. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this, and let's go ahead and type in September and add it. And let's go ahead and misspell it this time. September with 2 R's, right? I click on add. September was successfully added, and I realize, oh my God, I made a mistake. Let's go ahead and change it. But I type in the wrong index, right? So if I hit display table right now, September is with 2 R's is in ID number 19. Let's suppose I put in like 20, or let's say I put in 199, and I click change. So it says type error, record is null. It is not null. Record.name is right here. Failed to change temp index. Oh, record was not successfully added. So I don't actually, if it's an error code, you don't want to use record.name because it's failed, record was never created. So we actually got to just use the temp name. So I'm going to change this to temp name, and that should fix the code. Let's go ahead, reset, hit run again. I'm gonna hit display table. So we still have September with ID 19 with 2 R's. Let's go ahead and type in September, but we typed in the wrong code and click change. And it says September failed to be changed because of index 199. Okay, so now we have a proper error code for us to detect that we did not correctly do this. So now we go in here, change it to 19, which matches this ID, click change, and now it says September was successfully changed. We're going to hit display table, and now we have fixed our table. We can go to our data, and now we have been able to add data and change data And we are done with this program. So now I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the code. So we added 18 more lines of code. Actually, if you take out all these spaces here, if you get rid of these, if you don't think about the semicolons, we only added like 15 lines of code, right? But now our program can change and edit a database onto the cloud. Okay, so it's very powerful, very cool. And then in 2 days or so, on Wednesday, I'm probably give another video on how to delete records. It'll be a very short video, but I'll still give you 2 days because we're down to 2 weeks, folks. Um, 2 weeks before finals week, and chances are I'm not going to give a final that's going to be dense or full of substance or anything like that anyway. So yeah, so I want to take it easy on you guys, give you guys opportunity to catch up on your work and your other classes and my class as well for those of you who are behind and finally getting online now and doing the work. So yeah, I'll give you guys 2 days for this program, and then 2 days later we'll do a delete record, and it'll be just similar. It'll be like 20 lines of code or so, and I'll give you 2 days to do that to give you guys some time to catch up. Okay, so I'll see you guys. Make sure again you rename your program to something like um, 5/11/2020 database part two, something like that, and go ahead and take a screenshot, send it to me by Tuesday by midnight. Okay, and I'll see you guys.